Thanks, Caitlin, and hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning if you're in Pacific time or Mountain time or Central time, and good afternoon if you're any place east, so Eastern time or Atlantic time, I guess. We're going to spend the next 45, 50 minutes talking about Dynamics GP 2018, kind of in a product tour format. And so obviously we won't be able to talk about everything in the system. There's about 60 modules, and we'll get to a handful of those. But hopefully this will give you a good flavor of what Microsoft Dynamics GP looks like. This is kind of designed for people that have not seen the software before. So if you're brand new and have never seen GP, or maybe it was years ago you saw an old version or worked with an old version, this really is designed for you. If you're an existing Dynamics GP user that's on a fairly current version, glad you're here and we'd love to have you. You might see some things that you already know, and so, but hopefully you'll see a few new things along the way as well. So we're going to spend the bulk of the time obviously in the product, but I do have a couple of things that I wanted to point out kind of based on the slides here. And so just very quickly, people will ask, well, what do I need to run Dynamics GP? And so these are the system requirements for version 2018. So you have to have a current version of Windows, so Windows 7, 8, 8.1 or 10, either 64 or 32-bit, of course, so that's probably most everybody. Hopefully you're not still running Windows XP or anything older than 7. Microsoft Office, to get the best integration, Office 2013 or 2016 are best. It doesn't mean that you can't run GP if you have an older version of Office. To get the best integration, though, you need a more current version. And of course, a lot of things in the system can be converted to PDF format. Microsoft officially supports Adobe, and specifically Adobe 10 or Adobe X. That doesn't mean that it won't work with the free PDFs that you can go retrieve off the internet. So, if you have cute PDF or PDFzilla, or there's a number of those. There's probably dozens of those that you can grab that don't have any cost to them. For the most part, they work fine. They're just not kind of officially supported. If you're going to virtualize your servers, that's perfectly fine. Microsoft supports their own product, the Windows Hyper-V, but again, it runs on any virtualized system. VMware, of course, is the big one, and it works very well on that. I've seen some kind of no-brand virtualization systems, and we have clients running on many different types of virtualized servers, so you shouldn't really have any problem there as well. Server side, this is a SQL based product, and so you do have to have a current version of SQL Server, and current means SQL 2014, 2016, or the brand new SQL 2017, and so that's the critical piece for the database side, and then a current version of just the Windows Server product, so SQL or Windows Server 2012, 2016. You don't want to get too old on that stuff, obviously. And then the last thing, if you happen to be someone that is on an older version of Dynamics GP and you're kind of sitting in to get a sneak peek of what version 2018 looks like, perfectly fine. And if you're one of those folks, you might be interested in this slide. If you're on 2013 or older, there's not a direct upgrade path, but of course we can get you there, going from 13 to 15 or 13 to 16 to 18. If you're on 15 or 16, you can go directly to 18. You do have to be on one of the versions that I've noted here of either 15 or 16. And so if you have questions on that, you want to ping us later, that's certainly okay. We can figure out exactly what you might need to do to get your system to current. Okay, so that's really all of the slides that we have. And the rest of the time we're going to spend actually inside of the software. And so I've logged in already, and I always like to point out that I'm logged in as a system administrator, so you'll see SA's homepage. Well, that normally will have your name up there, but because I'm tricking the system that I'm the SA, I'm the system admin today, so keep that in mind. There's no security being applied to my login, so I can go anywhere, I can do anything. There's absolutely no restrictions whatsoever on what I can see and different parts of the system I can get into. Well, in real life, that's not always the case. So people, depending on their role or their job within the software in the company, you'll probably have some security applied. But if you're a power user, kind of more of an admin user, then you would kind of be replicating what I'm doing today. So the first stop when we log in is we land on our homepage, and our homepage is really customizable for us. So we all would have different homepages based on what we do, what our tasks are each day, what our daily job is, and those tasks that we complete within our job. And so we'll have different things that we pull onto our homepage, and really this is just kind of you might think of it as a master menu landing spot. So this is the bulk of what I do. Of course, there's going to be some things that I might do at the end of the quarter and end of the year that I have to go retrieve off a menu. But the idea here is that we don't really want people digging through menus, trying to find things and can't remember where they are. And, you're click, click, click for way too long to try to figure out where was that report or where do I put that information in? Where's that data entry window? So we put that stuff on our homepage, and that way we're one click away from really anything that we would normally do. And these tiles, much like anything in Windows, these are movable, so you can drag and move these around. You can change the size of these, which we'll look at here in a little bit. But we configure our homepage to those things that we do frequently. And so I'm going to spend most of the time on my homepage because I have put those things on there that we're going to look at today. And so I can take action from a lot of different parts of the system all coupled to my homepage. So we'll go out of order a little bit just to keep it interesting. And so I'll start with the reports area. So my reports, these are the reports that I run on a regular basis. And yes, I could navigate to the reports menu, and I got lots of stuff installed here. Most people don't have every single module installed and turned on, but you drive over into a certain area and then, oh, where was that report? Is it a trial balance? And then I got a lot of options here. And so nothing wrong with that, except it takes clicks to do that. And it's really better if you run the same report frequently, that you put that on your home page, and then with one click, once it's on your home page, you can execute that report. And so let me make this a little bit larger here. And so here's just a kind of what I'll call a standard report, standard meaning original, kind of designed to get something on paper. Not there's no drill down, not overly intuitive, but it is a nice way if you just need something on paper. And so this is an age trial balance for my receivables. So the people that owe me money, these are my customers, and what is open on each customer account. And so you'll see there, I've got totals there coming up for each customer. And of course, if I get all the way down to the bottom, I can see the grand total for my aging here. So these are kind of the older style reports, but we do have the ability to, of course, modify any report that comes up. So if we have the security permissions available, we could click on the modify button, would open the report writer, and of course you'd have to know, what you wanted to do. But if there's things you want to take off a report, or some things you want to add, or you want to rearrange it, or move the columns around, that's really where you do that. We can also send the report out, and because I do have a PDF creator installed on my laptop here, you'll see that I have the PDF option here lit up, so it's available. You could send the report out in text, although that doesn't look very good, and of course it could be modified, so text is not the greatest way to bundle up a report. But I could bundle this up into a PDF, and what Dynamics does is it finds my email client and finds my PDF creator, and so it moves the report over to the PDF product, and then opens an email message and attaches that PDF file to the email and waits for me to type in who I want to send this to. And so it does all of the work that it can for us. And every report, there's hundreds and hundreds of these reports in the system, depending on which modules you actually use. Every report kind of looks and feels and has these same options embedded here. Now, again, keep in mind, these are the older style reports. So I'm going to show you a whole bunch of different ways to get to data. This is just one way. And of course, you could actually print this report. And so I have mine set to go to the screen by default. If this is something that I always need a hard copy of and have to put in a file somewhere, I can do that when I generate the report. I don't have to look at it on the screen first, or I could send it to both the printer and the screen. I have mine just going to the screen, but if I wanted to send this out into one of my printers, so any printer that this computer sees, network or local, or even the PDF creator, and I am using Adobe here, but any print driver that's available will show up here. So, and this is just really Windows kind of presenting the printers. It's nothing Dynamics is doing. So this would be the same screen you would see if you were printing an email message or a Word document or Excel file and so forth. Okay, so that's kind of the report area. Shortcuts to any reports that you run regularly. Now, things that you do in the system, so work, tasks that you have to do are over here under the quick links. And so, well, what would we do there? Well, maybe you're responsible for managing cash, for example. So I can use the cash flow calendar here and see by month and by date. And you'll notice my date I have set up a little bit ahead, so April of 2027, so I don't have to keep changing the date here. So here is a snapshot of what April looks like a few years from now. And so because this is dealing with cash, the system's looking at everything that it knows about. So receivables that are due, payables that are due to be paid, so money going out. And it puts that on the date that it thinks that I'm going to actually collect the money or write the checks. And if the net is negative, like Sunday the 4th here, apparently I have some money due there, then it shows up on that date. If the net effective cash for the day is blue, so I have more money coming in than what I have going out expected, then it will show up in the blue. And of course, the black is the running cash balance. So not much in April. Let me flip over to May here. And so here I've got a number of things. So on Saturday, May 1st, I see I have 50,000. That's a net positive. Well, I can drill down on that and see, well, it's positive. So am I collecting any receivables? Probably not on Saturday. How about just a transaction? Oh, here we go. So we see here that 50,000 really represents an advance on my line of credit. And so that's not a receivable. I don't invoice for that. It's just I expect the bank to put money in my account on May 1st. And so I can build this in. So you'll see here that I've built in, just by double clicking there, I've built in some transactions that affect my cash, but don't go through payables or receivables. So I just need to go put these in. These are not anywhere in the system yet because they haven't happened. So on May 1st, I've got a $50,000 draw on my line. On May 15th, looks like I'm spending about half of that buying a piece of equipment. And so let me close that out. And so here's May 15th, and sure enough, we see that same transaction now is showing up on the cash flow calendar for Saturday the 15th. I must do a lot of work on Saturday here. But when we go over to kind of more of a normal process here, let's say the 12th, we see I've got a good amount of money coming in on the 12th. And so we can start to drill through here and see, well, let's see if there's any payables that are due to be paid. Oh, there are a few there. And how about any receivables that I expect to collect? Oh yeah, quite a few. So since it was such a large amount of money, and so the system's looking at everything and kind of deciding based on when the customers normally pay or when their due date is. We can kind of use either to figure out this money should arrive on that date. And again, it's just a projection. There's no entries into the system from this. It's just reading the underlying data, allowing us to kind of project out, lightly project out what cash might look like. And of course, all of the windows, you'll see the print button here. And if we want to print what's on the screen, it literally just takes a picture of what's on the screen and puts that on the report. And again, all these reports are the same style. So I can print this to the printer. I could email this out to someone, just like when we looked at the aging there for my receivables. So kind of moving on to a few other things, maybe you enter journal entries frequently, and so here's the journal entry screen, and I probably have some unposted entries out here, and so I do. So there's insurance expense that I've put in here. You'll notice the red, and I have that turned on so that you can see it, but once you get to know the system, you might not want to look at the red or the bold kind of references there, but that signifies those things that are required. So if I'm going to do something in this window, like post it, I have to tell the system these, in this case, 5 things that are red. And so as we go in and out of different windows, you'll see the red fields. Those are the required fields. It's a real easy way to learn the system. When you move about the different components of Dynamics GP, those things in red, you're going to have handy to be able to execute the transaction. And so here I've got just a simple entry, and you'll see my account structure here. Let me open this up a little bit so we can actually see the account name. But I'm using kind of this 3-digit, 4-digit, 2-digit. Well, that's just personal preference, and sometimes you'll do like a department or a division in front of the account, and then kind of the main account number, and then maybe a sub account or something towards the end. But Dynamics GP does allow us up to 66 alphanumeric characters in our chart and 10 segments. So we could have 9 dashes to give us 10 different segments. Now, I would probably talk you out of doing 66 and 10, but that is kind of a limitation that is in the system. It's really about the only kind of hard-coded limitation there is. So just keep that in mind. But I've been doing this 22 years. I've never had anyone that needed more than 66 characters in their chart. So that's seems like a lot. So, you can key this stuff in. You can look up the account. So maybe if I was going to add an account to this entry, I can come down to the new line here, and I've got these little lookup. They look like a magnifying glass there, the little lookup glass. And so in this case, the system shows me the accounts. Now I have mine set to look for account number. So if I'm looking for something that starts with 500, the more I type in, then the closer it gets based on the number. Well, maybe you don't know the number in this case, but you know what the account's called. So I can flip my search here to description just by clicking on the column. And maybe I'm looking for repairs, and so if I just type in REP, that brings me to all the accounts that start with REP and puts them in alphabetical order. And so when you're looking up customers or inventory items or vendors, they all the kind of the searching and the lookup screens kind of look the exact same way, and they have the same functionality as the account screen here as well. Now, there is something a little bit unique with this window, and that's the ability to pull data in directly from Excel. So I've created just a very small entry here in Excel and highlighted it. If I do just a simple copy, just like you would in any other Microsoft product, I'll see those 4 accounts now be able to be pasted over into the journal entry window. So I've kind of closed, or I've saved the transaction we had, so we get a new window here, and all I have to do is click on this Excel paste button, and you'll see there that in just a second the entry that I had in Excel is pasted into the window. And so now with only 4 accounts, that I probably could have keyed that in pretty fast, but a lot of people still do things in Excel. You might have some accruals or some calculations, bonuses, or year-end things that you're doing that cause journal entries to be made in the system. Well, if you've done all the work in Excel, the idea is that you really don't want to have to rekey those things. And so you just simply copy and paste from whatever you've done in Excel into the journal entry kind of grid part of the window here, and makes for a very easy and accurate transition. So you only do the work once, and most of us do not need keyboard practice anymore. So this is not the early 90s where none of us were proficient on keyboard and mousing. We all kind of have that down. So I'll just go ahead and delete this one and get that out of the way. Okay, so other things, a lot of people reconcile bank accounts in the system, so we'll take a look at that. Here's my reconciliation screen. You'll see here I've got a number of bank accounts, so no limit on data elements, so unlimited accounts, customers, vendors, unlimited transactions, unlimited bank accounts, no restrictions whatsoever on size of the database or the size of our data. It's really hard disk space, so that's fairly cheap today. So maybe if I'm going to reconcile this Uptown Trust, you'll see I've already kind of started this because I've already put the bank balance in and the cutoff here that I'm using. And so when I click on transactions, the system is actually going to, in this case, it's going to go to a file, kind of a mock file that I have set up that I kind of assumed that I downloaded from my fictitious bank here. But the idea is that we really want to automate this as much as possible. And so you'll see here it's doing this electronic reconcile piece. What it's doing is looking at the file from my bank and checking off those transactions that are in the file as cleared. And so if it can't get a match, or if it, if something's off a little bit, then of course it wouldn't check that off. So maybe this deposit right here cleared for a little bit different than the 11 cents. And so I have to manually kind of clear that. And maybe I come in and say it was 10 cents, not 11. And so the system then will make the journal entry for the penny and fix that for me. Right here within the reconciliation. And so I can see now that there's a visual cue here that transaction's been adjusted from what I recorded. And so the electronic reconcile sees that as not matching because it was a penny off. And so you still have some one-off things, if there's a service charge or your account earns interest or something that the Dynamics GP may not know about yet, you can handle those kind of within the reconciliation and kind of make adjustments here yourself. So if you do have a service charge or any other kind of, maybe there's a NSF fee or a wire fee or something that the account got charged with that you have not recorded yet, you can do that. And of course, there's your general ledger account that you can pop in there right there. And so the idea is that, again, we don't want to spend a whole lot of time ticking off checks and deposits and so forth that clear. We want the automation to do that for us. And so we use the electronic reconcile to grab the transactions from the file from our bank. And a lot of people reconcile every day now. Maybe once a week is enough, but almost no one waits for the bank statement to come in the mail anymore. If you still get a paper statement, you usually get it, open it, and put it in a file cabinet, or maybe scan it and shred it. But absolutely no one waits for the bank to send those cleared transactions out in statement form at the end of the month and hold up your closing a week while you're waiting for the bank statement. You would reconcile ongoing throughout the month. And we have many customers that do a daily reconciliation. Some do it just whenever they get time. Some do it every Monday, every Friday. But the old days of kind of waiting for paper to come in the mail are kind of a thing gone by. So that's kind of what the banking, at least the reconciliation piece looks like. And so the whole idea here is that we put those things that we do on a regular basis onto our homepage. A couple of quick notes before we move off the links area here. We do have the ability to do allocations, and so there's something called variable allocations. And variable, I've set one up here for my rent, and so this is kind of my account to allocate, and these are the accounts I'm going to allocate to. And so maybe I've got division 100 through 600 here. And a variable allocation is I want to base the allocation on something else. So fixed would be I'm going to allocate a fixed percent every month of rent into a different department or group of departments. And it's the same amount or the same percentage every month. But variable, it's going to be different every month. The accounts are stored. And so, but then we have to tell the system, well, what do we want to use to base the allocation on? And so when I highlight one of these, you'll see over on the right here that another part of the window opens up. And this is kind of the basis for the allocation. And the system calls it a breakdown account. But let me drill down on that, and you'll see these are non-financial accounts. And so these are what we call unit accounts. And so I'll show you all those that I have set up. And got a number of them here. And so things like headcount, so how many people are in a department. Maybe you allocate IT costs based on how many computers are in a department. A lot of people allocate based on square footage. That's a popular one. I did one to show someone in the amusement park business, the number of armbands that we sold every day. And so anything not dollars and cents, we can capture in the software. And of course, if we capture in here, we can not only use it for allocations, but we can pull any of these unit accounts onto a financial statement. So if we wanted to take sales divided by square footage, that's a big kind of a key metric in the retail business. If we want to take labor divided by the number of employees, we could easily do that. And so these unit accounts or non-financial accounts, they become available to all of our reporting tools and to our allocations. And so that's kind of what you see here being done with the rent. And so, so now why would you do that? Well, the idea with the variable allocation is those unit accounts will change every month. And so they'll have different balances as we go through. And so I don't have a lot of entries in here. So you'll see my, my units, so to speak, actually don't have much in them. And so here's my armband daily sales. And so you'll see I can key into these accounts just like I can key a journal entry into my general ledger. I can key entries into my unit accounts. And so, you know, if these varied every month, then I would come in and make entries at the end of the month on what the new numbers were. And then I could use those for reporting and allocations. Now you'll see number of telephones, I actually had set it 2 decimal places. So these are not dollars and cents because these are non-financial, but I can get a little precision out there. And 2 is the maximum, but I can get a little bit precise if I am tracking something that I need something more than just whole numbers. And so, so that's part of the allocations. The other part, which is a little bit simpler, is the fixed piece. And so here I'm allocating utilities, kind of going into the same 6 departments, but I'm not going to look for some other basis for the calculation. I'm just going to put 5% to department 100 and so on, 25% down into department 600. So every time I pay a utility bill that I use this 0006190 account, Dynamics GP is going to go back and say, well, really what he wants to do is reallocate that utility cost into these other 6 accounts here based on these percentages. And then until I come in and change these, the software will do that for indefinitely until I update this. And so that's kind of how the 2 allocation methods work. Let's move on here to a little bit more interesting area. So I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger. A few minutes ago, I said we could change the focus or the size of our home page, and this one's kind of hard to see without. And so you'll see when I click just on the little icon up here, that actually changes the focus of my page to kind of direct me into this particular area. And so, and I can do that with any of these. If I want my to-do area to be the main focus, I just make that the large one. And so what this does is save this. So, and it's just for you. No one else in the system will have any edits made based on what you're doing. But when you log into the software, it'll kind of direct your focus on your home page into this particular area. And so this is kind of our business analyzer area. And these are charts and graphs and kind of key performance metrics or key performance indicators, KPIs as we call them. We can see raw data here, or we can see charted data. There's a couple hundred of these KPIs in the form of charts and graphs that come with the software, and that's what you're seeing. I'm just pulling stuff that is out of the box. You can edit any of this yourself. So if you don't like what Microsoft did, we help you edit those. We show you how to create your own. So if you want to build something that of the couple hundred that Microsoft has built, you might have some unique needs, and a lot of people do. So we show you a little wizard to use that you can actually create your own and plug those onto your homepage here. And so here I've got some things, and I just kind of pulled some examples today so you can see the different types of charts and graphs and even raw data being reported, just so you kind of get a flavor of what's available. So we call this a heat map, and so a heat map meaning that we want things to light up when there's data there. And so these are my sales by state, obviously. And so that's one way to kind of look at data. Here's cash, and you don't have to be a seasoned accountant to know that that's probably not the direction you want cash to be traveling there. So luckily this is sample data. And so here's sales per month. That one's pretty small to see, even for me. And things like kind of a graph here where you're not seeing the raw data, you're just seeing kind of a summarization of the raw data. And so a lot of times, you know, the hardcore accounting folks, they wouldn't necessarily use this because you could go get the data on a report. You can see the real numbers. But if you think about kind of the C-level people, the CFO, the CEO, the boss, so to speak, a lot of times those folks, they don't care about every single transaction down to the penny. They just kind of want to see in summary form what's happening kind of under the hood here in the business. And this is a good way to deliver that information out to people that are not necessarily system users, but have a need to actually see the transactions or see the data. And so, you know, this, instead of the graph, this shows my cash position and kind of where we're headed here. Of course, green is good, red of the down arrow here being in red, that's bad. And so that's, you know, simple stuff that's already pre-built and out of the box for you. And so, well, that's good, you might be saying, but, you know, the boss, so to speak, is not a system user, so they wouldn't really have any access to this. And you, as a Dynamics GP user, you don't really care about it because you can go look at the screens and you can see the data. So good point, good question. Well, I just plugged this onto my home page so you could see it, but the real power of this is not running it inside of the software, is really running it through a browser. And so this runs in Chrome or Internet Explorer, Safari, are kind of the three main ones, and it runs equally well in all those browsers. And so I'm going to drill into the company we're in today. And again, remember, I don't have any security restrictions here, so all this is wide open. This wouldn't always be the case. We're in financial, and you'll see I've got a number of things here that I could run, so I could actually run a general ledger from my browser and get real-time data out of my Dynamics GP system. I'm going to go into the charts and graphs, kind of the KPIs, and as I said, there's a couple hundred of these, and you're starting to see all of this is all stuff that's out of the box here. So let's see, here's that cash position KPI detail. Well, that's today, and I'm actually in 2027. And so as soon as I do this and tab off of that, the system goes just for a few seconds and looks at the data and echoes back what that should look like. And so you see now I'm seeing the same data, whether it's inside of my system and I happen to be viewing this chart, or I'm running it through a browser. So you can imagine if you have an Android phone or an iPhone or an iPad, you're running Google Chrome for your browser. This works beautifully in Chrome. And this allows us to deliver all of these charts and graphs and other reports through the browser out to anybody that might have need. And so, you know, if the boss is on vacation and wants to see what cash looks like or receivables or what money got spent while she was on a trip, she could do that just through her browser on her iPhone or her Android phone and not have to call accounting and say, you know, hey, what's the bank balance today? Or, you know, what do things look like? You could do that. That's kind of an old-fashioned way to do it, but Microsoft's really in the business of kind of making this more self-service and not having to bother the accounting department all the time for reports and updates and so on. Okay, so that's kind of the key performance indicator area. We call that the business analyzer. And then the area up here on the left, this is what we call the to-do area. So to-do meaning these are things that I decided that I need to keep track of. And so I see I've got some reminders, and as I hover over these, I can actually drill down into any of these. I've got some tasks, so I left myself, or maybe my manager left me a task and put it on my home page for me to remember to deposit the cash from the vending machine, and that's today. I've got some workflow tasks that I don't see yet, but I will here in a couple of minutes. So let's see. This was a 1099 list, so let's see what's going on with that. Well, here I've built a list already for us to look at, and when I say I built a list, all I did was go in and pick the columns that I wanted. And here I'm trying to see if I have vendors that I need to issue a 1099 at the end of the year. But as of right now, I haven't captured their tax ID number. So, you know, if I wait and do this in January, I'm going to maybe be in a bind here. I need their tax number to get into the system so that I'm ready to send out the 1099s. And so I pulled the columns on and kind of rearranged things. Maybe the tax ID number I don't really need up there by the name. I'm going to stick it down here after the zip code. And so this is my own little query tool. You'll notice this window is called SmartList. And so this is my own little personal, private kind of way to extract data from the system based on my security. So I'm not going to extract payroll data if I don't have access to the payroll part of the system. And so you'll see when I clicked OK there that the column moved over. It is empty, and these are problems because I'm paying these guys some money here. I've set them up to be a 1099 vendor, but I either haven't captured their tax number or I haven't taken the time to put it in the system. But either way, the software is not ready to prepare the 1099. And so that identifies a problem, and I have that on my home page. I did this apparently for someone called Tina. And so on Tina's homepage, she would see this and know that, hey, there's 6 of these out there. Once these 6 get resolved, so either get their tax number or maybe I flagged them as a 1099 vendor and shouldn't have, so I go in and fix that. But once the 6 are resolved, then this will disappear off Tina's homepage because there's nothing to remind her of. And so every day Tina can see that I've got 6 of these I need to deal with. And so this is a problem, but it doesn't really fix the problem. It just tells us, hey, there is a problem. So now we want to fix the problem. We want to send something out to these guys, maybe a letter, and say, hey, I need you to fill out the attached W-9 form and get me your tax number. And so this is a Microsoft product. So as you would expect, we can use Microsoft Word, and it senses that these are vendors, so it knows to present vendor letters. And there's 50 or 60 of these letter templates that come with the software. The same rule applies here. You can use them out of the box, which is what you're seeing here. You can create your own, unlimited of your own, or you can edit theirs if you don't like what they've done. Now, I happen to know that they do include a request for the W-9, and so we'll go ahead and process that. Well, these are the vendors, the 6 vendors that I have on my list. Well, you know, maybe I just talk to these guys and they're going to send it over, so I'm not going to go to the trouble of preparing a letter and reminding them. So we'll just do these 4. Well, then how's this letter supposed to get signed? And so I've got my name and contact info in there and my title today, credit manager. And so when I click finish, we're doing a mail merge. The software is doing a mail merge between the accounting data and Microsoft Word, and that opened on my other monitor. And so I should have 4 letters here. Of course, this is the name of our little sample company today. I should have 4 letters with my signature, at least a place for me to sign. If I actually wanted to wet sign it, as we say, with a pen, I could do that, or I could just drop these in the mail. Of course, I'm referencing a W-9 that's attached, so I've got to get them the W-9, and whether I save these and email them or fax them or US mail, whatever, that's really up to me. These are all just Word documents now, and so Dynamics GP has prepared this without me having to do anything, really, just a few clicks. And of course, because they're Word documents, you know, I can do anything I would normally do in Word and make any edits. I've got the full power of Word now at my fingertips here. And so so that's kind of an example of how we can get the system to remind us when a condition exists, and that could be anything that we have access to. When a condition exists, I want you to post a reminder on my homepage, and then in this case, I actually want you to do something about it and or help me do something about it. So I use the mail merge functionality between the Word templates that come with it, and the accounting data to request data or take some kind of action on it. Okay, so let's scroll down here a little bit. You'll see here I've got the timekeeping system, I've got the procurement system, and the project accounting system kind of plugged in to my home page here. So we're going to focus a little bit on the procurement piece, and procurement meaning I might want to do a requisition that ends up being a purchase order. And so now I'm kind of and I could be a very low-level user that has no access to the accounting system whatsoever, but I could still log into Dynamics GP with a very thin, very inexpensive license and enter a requisition. And so you'll see I've got a number of them out here. So let's say requisition 2 here. Now I've already entered this, so you didn't have to watch me key all this in. There's my required fields, so the requisition number, which Dynamics is providing, and the date. And so let me just make a change here and say this is going to be, I found out it was $250, not $200. And, I have the ability to add a vendor or not. None of that's required because sometimes the people doing the actual requisition, they might not actually know where we're buying it. So they give us as much as they can, and then we kind of take it from there, so to speak. And if they don't know the GL account that's going to get charged or the shipping address or method and so on, none of that stuff's required. So we get them to tell us as much as they can, and then we kind of fill in the gaps. So here I've made a change, and now I've got to submit that into the workflow. So the requisition has workflow built in that allows me to send this along a path. And of course, I have to create the approvers based on who's requiring or who's requisitioning this, the dollar amount, maybe the total of the document. I could do it by line item total. I could do it by vendor. Really anything that you see captured here can be added to the workflow to figure out where does this need to go to get approval. And so I'm going to submit that, or in my case, resubmit it. And I'm going to put small price increase and resubmit that. And so normally this would go out through email and be sent out to the first person in the hierarchy. And there's no limit on how many people need to approve these. So this could be 1, or this could be 50 people that need to approve it based on all the different rules we set up. Well, I've got this coming back to myself as the approver, so I'm going to refresh my home page. And when I do that, you'll see this requisition, because now I'm the approver instead of the requisitioner. It's posted that to my home page. Now, again, keep in mind that normally the approvers are not Dynamics GP users. They're the management or the supervisors. They probably don't have a GP login, and we don't want to spend money to have them log in just to get this requisition to be approved. So we do this through email. So typically this task is sent out. They would get the email. They would be able to see all of the details. So all the line items on the requisition they would have access to, and they could approve it, they could reject it, or they could delegate it and send that on to someone else. And so now I'm kind of the approver and kind of ignoring the email part, which is a little difficult to show since it does take quite a bit of setup on the mail server to get that. Well, not quite a bit. It's just you have to have a real environment instead of a demo environment. And so here I see the workflow status is pending approval by the first person in line, which happens to be me. I'm the only one in line. And so now I'm the approver. Whether I do this in the system or I do it through email, I can come in and approve, reject, or delegate that. And if I delegate it, if I have security and authority to delegate it, it moves on to someone else. So I say, hey, I'm not going to deal with that right now. If I approve it, then it would move on to the next person in the hierarchy, if there was one. So maybe I approve everything up to 5,000. And if this was 5,000 and $1, it has to go to my boss then. And because she approves everything from 5 to 10 and so on. So, you have to kind of build those approval chains or hierarchies, but that's stuff we help you figure out and get set up for you. So, and then show you how to maintain it kind of going forward. So I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to let it reject here, but I wanted to show you the history of the workflow. So we are capturing this, even if we do it through the email, which is 99% of how all this happens. We're capturing the history of the workflow. So we can see here that it was originally submitted, and I already had this requisition in from a few months ago, and so it was submitted, but no one approved it. And so it just sat there. Well, we've got a timer that says if it doesn't get approved or rejected in a certain amount of time, that the system's going to just reject it. So it can't just sit out there forever. And so the system rejected it a couple hours later. So I've got about a 2-hour timer on that. Well, today, just a few minutes ago, I resubmitted it. There's my note that I put in, small price increase, and it's sitting out there in pending status, and it's telling me that when the task is overdue, so I got 2 hours here to deal with this. When the task is overdue at 1:45, it's going to get rejected. So if I don't go in and approve this or manually reject it, that Dynamics is going to reject it. And so I'm just going to let that happen since I don't care about that. And so that's kind of how the requisition system works at a very high level, but very customizable to our workflow needs and the hierarchy and how we get approvals and who gets to approve and so forth. We have complete control over that all the way through the process. And keep in mind there, the big thing is that's all done through email. People are not logging into the system to have to do that. So now you'll see that did put one requisition in the pending user action. So that's the requisition number 2 that we just looked at. And we'll see there, supplies for the paint room, there's requisition 2, and it's been now updated to $250, and it's been assigned to, this is the first person in the hierarchy, which brings it back to me, and we can see the workflow status is it's pending, and so it's going to sit out there until 11:45 Central and reject if I don't deal with it. If the requisition gets approved and ultimately is purchased, then the user, the GP user can come in and see, oh, it was PO 2077. Well, they know it's been purchased and it's got a PO number assigned automatically then. And so this first one was purchased as well, but it was on multiple POs. So for whatever reason, the purchasing person decided to split that up. Maybe they got some better pricing or one vendor didn't have enough, whatever it might be. And so, so that's kind of how the requisition piece works as well. Just quickly on the time management, we can capture payroll or project accounting time and expenses here. If we're doing payroll or HR in the system, we have the ability for people to come in and do things like update their profile. So if they move or update their W-4, if they change withholdings, maybe they have a kid or family size changes and they want to come in and do that, they can retrieve their W-2 here. So if they're at the bank on Saturday afternoon trying to apply for a car loan and the bank says, hey, I need your last two, I need your W-2 from last year and your last 2 check stubs, well, they could log right in and retrieve this right from their phone potentially and retrieve that information or email that out to the bank loan officer and away they go. So no need to call accounting on Monday and bother the accounting folks. I don't have any W-2s processed yet, but I do have pay stubs out there. And so maybe if I need my last pay stub, and of course I'm getting a direct deposit, so there's not a real check stub per se, but I see all my pay history out there and I can print that off and there's my recreation of the pay stub here, and so I can see everything that would have been on my direct deposit for that particular pay period, and I could send that to myself or I could email that out to the loan officer, or of course I could print that. Again, same rule here on how these reports work. Okay, so I'm going to leave my home page now for the first time here, and I'm going to move over to kind of one of the other parts of the system here as we kind of wrap up. I'm just going to move over into the sales area. And so when I do that, everything to do with sales is pulled onto my home page that I have access to. And of course, I can rearrange the tiles here, make them larger, just like we did on my home page. I've got some things missing, and so maybe these things, I don't ever have any access to, so why would I want those even showing up? I never go in, or maybe I access them once a year, but I don't want to clutter up my homepage with those things that I don't use. So let me just pull up a customer here. And so this is kind of the customer master, and you'll see one required field is a customer ID. So, and all these screens look the same. We can sort by ID, we can sort by name. I didn't go into the additional sorts, but lots of other sorting capabilities here. I'm just going to pull up the first customer in the list here, and not really talk about the demographics. This would be very similar in most any part of the system. But I can take action here. If I have a customer that I'm working on, I could actually print a statement for that customer. And I've got, again, these set to print out to the screen. And so if I was on the phone with the customer and we were talking about what they owed and they can't reconcile, I can immediately generate a statement and immediately send that out to the customer and verify that they've received it. We can open it together and talk through it, or no more excuses about, oh, I didn't get the statement or I didn't get that invoice, whatever it might be. I also have the ability to create letters. We kind of saw one of these from the SmartList, but I can also create letters directly from the customer here. So collection letters, normal customer letters, and so on. So I won't go back through that because it works the exact same way. But I do want to bring up this all-in-one view. And so this gives me a complete 360-degree view of this customer and every single transaction that we processed for them. And so I've got quotes in my system. Sometimes you don't use quotes or orders. That's fine. You just take these columns off since they would be empty. But if I wanted to see, for example, you know, did this quote right here ever turn into an invoice? Well, no, or an order first. No, it sure didn't. It's still sitting out there. Maybe I want to see this payment right here. And of course, I can drill down. So the blue underline allows me to drill back into the system. And so I can see it's grayed out because it is in history here, but I can see information about the transaction. I can click on the look or the little post-it note here, and I can put some notes here if I want to. So I can type some things there. I can use the kind of the Olay container here called document attach, and you'll see I've got a number of documents that are attached. And so I can scan. I don't have a scanner today, so the scan button's grayed out, but if I had a scanner hooked up to my computer, I could scan directly into this window. I can attach from documents that might be out on a network share somewhere. And so, you know, I could put anything onto the window that I wanted to, no limit there. That's a permanent part of the dynamic system. So if that document got deleted off the network, that's okay. A copy of it's been moved into the software here. So maybe I want to see, well, what's this payment? What did this actually pay? So if I just tick the box, I see that, oh, this actually paid this invoice, and this invoice actually came from this order. And so that's good, but maybe I want to see it from the other side. So I could say, did this order ever get invoiced, and has it been paid? Well, if I tick the box on the order, it clears all the other invoices. And so I can see that, yes, this order did end up on this invoice. And there could be other things. It looks like it's the same dollars, so that's the only order. There could have been 10 orders on the invoice, but this order ended up in this invoice, and it was paid with this amount, this customer check number. And so with just a couple of clicks, you can see everything that you would normally keep in a file cabinet without having to go to the paperwork. And so that's the idea, is we don't need a bunch of paper involved here. So the very last thing is just some other dashboarding things. So we looked at regular reports, we looked at kind of SmartList query reports. The last piece is there's a few hundred Excel reports that come with the system, and the same rule applies here. We can edit any of these, we can use them the way Microsoft has prepared them, we can change what Microsoft has done. And I've messed this one up a little bit, it looks like, but here's just a kind of an out-of-the-box sales dashboard. And again, if you don't sell stuff through the system, that's fine. There's a purchasing one, there's an inventory one, there's an employee kind of payroll one, there's a financial dashboard. And this gives me a lot of information, again, all out-of-the-box stuff here on what's going on. And I've got a number of tabs here that they've created for us. I can change any of this up to my own liking if I don't like what they've done. So there's just a simple little sketchy aging there for me to look at. But you know, I'm doing this in Excel, And so this is another way to get information out to people that don't have to be users in the system. And it's Excel, and so I've got all the power of Excel here, like quickly changing dates and periods. I could look at this in any number of views here, but this is really just Excel now kicking in, looking at live data. So live data, provided securities there. You don't get somebody going into a meetings. Oh, hey, I'm going into a meeting in 10 minutes. I need you to update that spreadsheet and send it to me like right now. Well, no, you don't have to do that. You can just give them the power to do this. They can go grab their own data, and we build their spreadsheet, and then they go use it as they need it. So, Caitlin, we're running up against time here. Any questions sitting out there in the queue?
Yes, we did receive a few questions. So the first question is, which industries are best served by GP 2018?
Good question. It's a very horizontal product. So lots of project-based industries. We have manufacturing. I didn't really touch on that, but we have a discrete manufacturing system that's very good. Service industries. Of course, anybody that needs just good, solid core accounting. About 70% of Dynamics GP users come from QuickBooks when they outgrow it, and so that's a natural progression to get a kind of a more real, true mid-market accounting solution here. A lot of nonprofits use it because we have grant management, we have encumbrance management if we're really working off a budget. So there's not too many things that it doesn't fit, we'll put it that way. It's got very good payroll, very good human resource management.
Okay, the next question is it possible to integrate a purely cloud integration or an ISV with an on-prem GP?
Yes, it is. Do that all the time. Absolutely.
Okay, and then let's see, a couple more questions. We're upgrading from 2013 to 2018. We have a few SQL jobs that pull data from GP 2013. Where can I find the okay, I'm going to pronounce this wrong probably, the schema changes that have, yes.
The schema changes?
Yeah, that have been made between 2013 and 2018.
Okay. If that person will get their email to Caitlin, then we can get that to the right people and we can get you the schema changes. There are some, of course, because they do modify the tables and as the versions change because they add things. So yeah, that should be readily available.
Okay. I was going to say, yes, I can provide that follow-up.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
They provided their email.
Perfect.
I was going to say, I have a couple more questions that popped in. Brian, would you like to stay on to answer these questions?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. And just for anyone who has to drop, I'll just remind you that I will be providing a link to everyone who registered of the recording of this in case you need to drop off from the webinar now. But so the next question that we have is, do you know when 2019 becomes available, and will there still be a direct pass from GP 2015 to 2019?
The first question is 19 should ship around the first part of December this year. They haven't said the exact date, but they did say around year end, which typically with them means about the first part of December. There will not be a direct path from 15 to 19. They only go back 2 versions. And so you would have to be on 16 or 18 to go to 19, but that doesn't mean you can't go from 15. You just have to make that second jump or that second hop. So easily done, but not directly.
Okay, and our next question is, can it handle repeat invoicing such as SaaS revenue without inputting every month?
Yes. Yes, you can save those and just reuse them.
Okay, I'm just keeping an eye on the question box. That was our last question that we had submitted. Okay. I think that's all the questions that we have today. So if there's no additional questions, I would like to thank you all again for attending today's presentation. And thank you, Brian, for giving us a great overview of Dynamics GP 2018. And like I had just mentioned that I will be sending out a link to the recording this afternoon to everyone. And if you do have other questions that come up, please feel free to reach out to Brian and I, which I'll be copying both of us on the link recording email. So
All right.
thank you
Thank you,
again,
Kayla.
everyone. Yeah, thank you, Brian. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.